Welcome to the Coop Tank. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, coming to you from Sweet Recording in beautiful Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And I'm here with my producer, Joe Gangemi. He's somewhere. Joe, you there? Where's Joe Gangemi? Oh, there's. So I got to tell you, people, this Wednesday is another edition of Cocktails with Cooper down there at Splits Bar and Grill in Maple Shade, New Jersey. We always get a good turnout, so please come out. And it's pretty cool because I was driving down the street the other day, and in front, in their big digital billboard, it says Cocktails with Cooper. Networking event. So we should get some more people this time, and it makes me feel important. My name's in lights, and I have some great sponsors, and one of my sponsors is this really upstart company run by some really smart guys, Matthew Passy and Joe Gangemi. It's Contap. It's your company. So tell us a little about Contap, and because you'll be there, and I think you're gonna have some product there and show people on Wednesday, right?
Yes, Coop. Thanks so much. We're really excited to be a part of Cocktails with Cooper at Splits. It's always a great time. There's always so many people there. I always see some familiar faces and meet some new people as well. So it really is just one of the best networking events in the area, and we're super proud and excited to be sponsoring it. So Contap is, as we're calling it, the future of connection, because what we do is we make it as easy as ever to share your content, your contact information, your resources, websites, anything that exists on the digital domain can now instantly be shared thanks to convenient little key fobs like this one, or wristbands or table stands, which you might be able to see one behind me, probably not, and some other devices that just make it super easy for people to just tap your device with their smartphone. It brings them right to your profile or to a link of your choosing, and it's just super easy. We have a lot of new ideas. We have new software coming out, and yes, we are going to have some product. And we're going to actually be giving away some of our little Contap sticker buttons as well. So be sure to come out, Cocktails with Cooper. It's going to be awesome.
And Joe, I know we're at Sweet Recording, and everyone know about Sweet Recording, but I know you've been building a lot of studios lately. Just give people a quick rundown of how they can get a studio built in their house, and I believe it's anywhere in the country.
Yeah, man, we are ramping up the studio design operations. We do a little bit of everything here as it pertains to content creation. Obviously, we have the physical studio. That's where me and Coop are right now. And we help brands and businesses to, leverage video and audio content super efficiently. But we also do a lot of other things, including studio design, where we can build you a studio in your home, your office, your venue, anywhere that you would like. And it can be small scale to large scale. We've worked with everyone from individual creators and personal brands to, larger businesses, and even government municipalities. And I recently built Howard Eskin's studio. So that's something, that's something I'm proud of. And this morning, in fact, I was on another studio design site, building another studio for somebody. So we're ramping that up. Would love to talk to you. If you're looking to launch or level up your content that you're recording in-house, please reach out. I would love to learn more about what you're doing.
All right, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Coop.
A lot of stuff going on for Joe. And, he talked about my event. Two of my panelists today, I met at my event. In fact, my first guest, I met her at my last one. And John Cruz, my good friend whenever I need a guest, John's been in here like 5 times. John's my go-to. I call him. I go, hey, dude, I'll know at 9 tomorrow if I need something. He goes, all right, no problem. From KJS Digital Marketing, it's Karen Seymour. How you doing, Karen?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
And the next, this next guest, I think has a record for the longest name of the Coop Tank guest from, I'm going to get this right, Purpose-Filled Solutions and Evolutions. We have Barbara Anne Gardenhire-Mills. How you doing, Barbara?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on with these amazing women on this panel.
All right. I like having the women panels, and I put this together. I thought, yeah, it's an all-female panel. And my other guest, she's been on before, and she was on an all-female panel before, and it's from CFB Promotional Products. It's Linda Milano. How you doing, Linda?
I'm doing good, Steve. Thanks for having me back and with some awesome people.
All right. So, Karen, tell me a little about what you do and what your company does.
So we are a full service digital marketing agency. We create all things digital. So that includes social media, paid advertising, email marketing, landing page, sales funnels, whatever you need as a business provider. And typically we work with service-based businesses.
Okay. And Barbara Ann, I'm gonna call your company PFSE because
we do too.
Okay, good. Because I was like, it's really long for me to say every time. Tell us a little about PFSE.
So Purpose-Built Solutions and Evolutions, our overarching vision is to foster a world where every human being feels seen, heard, valued, and validated for the uniquely created and made person they are. Now, separate from that, we basically do a lot of executive leadership and mental fitness coaching, as well as training, as well as contracting and consulting with companies from all over the United States and a couple other countries now to help them create better cultures within their organization and grow and scale.
Okay, that's good. I just noticed because I say Linda's company, and we're all initial companies. We have KJS, we have PFSE, and from CFB Promotional Products, my friend Linda Milano. Tell them what you do, Linda.
So I've been in the industry for close to 30 years, and I help organizations, businesses, and even people with creative marketing materials. So most people think pens, mugs, t-shirts, but we take more of a consultative approach, really try to understand who your target audience is, what their likes and needs are, and help your message be seen and heard through the effectiveness of promotional products.
All right. So everyone, I always say everyone has a story, and we're going to start with you, Barbara Ann. How did you end up with PFS&E? But what was your path to working for this company? Because it's very different, and it's good because everyone needs to be seen. We sit there, and a lot of times you see people at events and they're sitting in a corner, but everyone wants to be seen. And so it's such a great idea. But so how did this come to fruition, this company?
It's a lifelong journey. I think, so interestingly, I was born in the late 60s at a time, when my parents got married, it was illegal in some states. And so growing up in Southern New Jersey, not really being a part of any one group, I realized that over time, I didn't really felt like I fit in. And so much of what we as humans want to do is we want to group and label people. And as my roles continue to evolve, I would work for the city of Bridgeton, which would begin what we didn't call DEI then and don't call it now. When I went to work for the city of Bridgeton back in the early 90s, I questioned why we weren't advertising for local businesses to do contract work in the local newspaper. And thus began 33 years, I sound so long, 33 years of work with different communities, be it veterans, minorities, women, disabled, both in the federal and state and local governments, as well even in corporate roles, fostering environments that capitalize on all of the amazing strengths that everybody can bring to an organization to succeed. And I took a coaching class back in 1997 when I was executive director of a nonprofit, and I fell in love with it. And so all of my roles that I've held, whether it be with the U.S. Small Business Administration or the White House Promise Zone initiative under Obama that transitioned as a legacy to the first Trump administration, or even other work I do with my company. I'm a serialpreneur. So Purpose-Built Solutions and Evolutions is my company that I started. I have a team of, including me, 7, but I'm also involved in like 8 other efforts and do work with, shout out to Cooperative Business Assistance Corporation in Camden, as I work with them. And we make loans to small businesses that banks otherwise can't make. So I've got my hands in everything. And the overarching theme is helping be their best extraordinary selves.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Linda, now I know I've heard your story, how you end up at CFB, which is named after her dogs. And that's, people don't know that. That's a little known fact. If you've ever had a trivia night and you say coffee, fudge, and bonbon, right? Am I right?
Nope. Creamy, fudgy, and bonbon.
Right. Okay. I don't know why I said coffee. Anyway, Linda, tell us about CFB. I can't believe I screwed up. I know it's creamy. Geez. Okay.
You confused it with Toffee, who's on social media.
Okay.
So CFB was started in 2014 after I worked for a family business for 15 years in the first part of my journey. And I love what I do. I love hearing businesses' unique stories. And we noticed that everyone's role is different, right? Like, even though it might be the same type of industry, everyone's mission is a little bit different. So their marketing material should tell their story and not be cookie cutter. And so when I started CFB Promotional Products in 2014, I wanted to always remember to pour heart and soul into my business, like a dog that greets you when you come to the door. It doesn't matter if you're gone for 5 minutes or 3 weeks, they greet you with that same energy and passion. So that's kind of the meaning behind the name. But I also wanted to really focus on my client's story, what their needs are, what their challenges are, and come up with creative solutions to solve those problems and also have them be seen and heard.
Okay. How about you, Karen? How did you come about? How did KJS come about?
Let me apologize if you can hear my dog in the background. So a lot of what Linda was saying kind of applies to us as well, except we have different products, right? And we produce different things. Linda has the physical products, and what we do is take those stories and make them applicable and interesting and connect with our clients' audiences. So at the center of everything that we do is really developing strategies, thinking about who their audiences are, what they're looking for, what they're interested in, and trying to connect people and connect services with the people who are interested and looking for what they're doing. So for us, attraction marketing is really kind of the basis of what we do. We kind of, rather than unethically, I guess, forcing people to feel like they need something, we kind of work with our clients and help them develop language, content that speaks to the people who are looking for them.
Okay. So everyone seems to love their job these days. I mean, there's some people that don't like their jobs. This is true. And I always ask, what do people love about their job? And I think it's sort of the same, but it might be different. I want to ask you, and we'll start with you, Linda, what's fulfilling about your job? Because I think love and fulfilling can be two different things. I mean, I may be wrong, but I think what's fulfilling about your job?
I enjoy people, networking and learning about what drives others to move forward, right? And what their purpose is. And I feel like a lot of times those dreams and those hopes and those goals seem like a far-fetched down the road item. And then especially when it's a small business, working with those small businesses where they want to be successful, and just listening to their stories and helping them select the right materials, right? Like I sell a lot of pens, don't get me wrong, but it's not always the right product to promote your business. So when I start to ask questions and learn about them, it always comes back to the relationship and listening, truly listening, and asking questions that they may not perceive, right? Like we all know our businesses inside and out and we live it, breathe it every day, but sometimes you don't see the outside perspective. So bringing that to my clients and having them think differently from like the outside in. And then when they come back to me and say, oh, this was such a successful campaign, or we were able to accomplish this. And it's so fulfilling and rewarding because it was, at the end of the day, of course, I'm doing it to make some money and put food on my table, but I also want others to succeed. And that really drives me forward.
Okay. How about you, Karen? What's fulfilling about what you do? Personally fulfilling to you?
I love talking with my clients, talking with these business owners that we work with, understanding why they got started, how they got started, a little bit more about their personalities, what drives them, what they're passionate about, and then helping them take that and push them forward. I work with such amazing entrepreneurs and business owners, and it really makes me excited and happy to kind of sit down with them and then think through a strategy, develop a campaign, push them forward and see them start to shine and really move from maybe invisible to, sort of everywhere within their industries. That's really exciting for me.
Okay. How about you, Barbara Anne? What's fulfilling about what you do?
It's interesting because a lot of what I do is the groundwork that then leads to the work that these other brilliant women are doing. What's the most fulfilling for me is that people trust me and members of my team to be part of transforming themselves from the inside out, and their teams and their companies from the inside out. Because a lot of times we look externally for things that need to be dealt with internally, and seeing them have that aha moment or really get curious as opposed to getting judgmental, it reminds me of, even on the worst days, why I do the work that I do, that all transformation is a change, and that these people have chosen to trust us with helping them through that change.
Okay. So you're all, as you said, you're all entrepreneurs. You're all out there, you're all making stuff happen. You're running your companies. And a lot of times when people, and we see this on social media, people always talk about the upside. You never see someone goes, oh, that day sucked. You don't see people say that, because I think it's like, it shows a sign of weakness, which is bullshit, because, being vulnerable is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. So talking about that, we're going to stay with you, Barbara Anne. What is a disappointment you have had in the last year or two, just in business? Because we don't talk about it. It's like, I talk to actors on my other podcasts all the time, and they're like, well, one guy told me, that's the other day, it's like how they didn't bring him back to Criminal Minds after one season. He goes, it was disappointing and it stung, but he can talk about it now, but it stung. So what is something in the last year or two that has been a little disappointment for you in your business as you're building your company?
I can talk about one that just happened this week. Back in March, we submitted a proposal. We received a letter of award that we were going to be the lead on a $100,000 project. We were really excited about it. And then things changed on a national political scale. And a lot of organizations that otherwise also bid on this project found out they were going to potentially be losing federal funds. And we just got notified that they've decided to rescind the original offer letter, because they basically want to spread the wealth out amongst all of the different entities that are going to lose funding. And so we put a lot of work into that, and it was very disappointing to let members of my team know that even though we had this award, letter in writing, I kept telling them nothing's done till it's done. Things are really crazy right now. But we're watching contracts that we do with the government and adjacent get cut back left and right. And so unless it's actually in hand, it's not done. And so letting them know that the hours and hours and hours of work that we put into this proposal, some of which actually is being used to drive that particular project forward, at best, we are only going to do a portion of it, as opposed to serving as the lead implementation entity.
Okay. That is a disappointment. How about you, Karen? What's a disappointment you've had? Because you're newer business, you're new to the group. I don't really know you. So tell what disappointment in the last year or two you've had.
Oh my gosh. When you asked that question, I started to think through the daily disappointments that come along with running your own business. Is there such a thing as going a year without a disappointment? I feel like every lost proposal is disappointing. Every proposal that you put out and you're ghosted on it, that's disappointing. The economic situation right now, it's very hard to get anybody to spend because they're nervous. We're all nervous. That's disappointing. It's just, I think I like what you said before, because everybody's online and they're like, I started my business and I made $2 billion in my first year. I think we're all kind of tired of that, because it's not true. It doesn't happen. The reality is, like, there's a lot of really high highs in running your own business, and then there's a lot of really low lows, and it's just how do you deal with it? Kind of just pick yourself up and move on.
All right. And Linda, just looking at you, but William Watkins has to order stuff from you. He put a comment online. Hey, William, how you doing? It passed Cocktails with Cooper sponsor, just like Joe Gangemi and Contact.
Yeah, baby.
So Linda, a disappointment, and I know because your industry has been really crazy in the last, tariffs and all that, but what's a disappointment in like the last year or two that really like hit you?
It is, the frustrating part is there's a lot of things happening in our world, and especially in our country, where it's outside forces that impact small businesses. And I don't know if anyone stops to think of the ripple effect that it has. And while my industry has been heavily produced in China and continues to be that, the tariffs was probably the most challenging thing that I've ever had to face. because there was a weekend in April where it was a Friday, and I remember going into the Friday and you heard it in the news and like you're living it and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then this firestorm of like literally the sky falling out from me. I had 167 emails from factories. That in itself took time to go through and weed out with projects that I had quoted weeks, months in advance that were now in jeopardy and did lose the $25,000 order that I worked so hard on, like Barbara Anne had said, through no fault of my own, right? Like, and or my teammates, but yet I just felt so like defeated because I didn't have the manpower to read through 157 emails and then address everything. And each factory was handling the tariffs differently because it was a fluid situation. Continues to be a fluid situation. And at one point, I remember thinking, what are my options here? How do I navigate this and still be an advocate for my clients? And after my pity party that weekend and like having major meltdowns, I came up with a plan. And I've worked with USA made factories throughout my career and gathered those sources together so that that's always a first option moving forward. But it's not a simple fix because we don't have the infrastructure or the manpower to staff a US factory. And at the end of the day, it's still not competitive. USA made products come with a premium. And while it's the ideal, it's not always budget friendly. And that was, it was challenging. I think it's leveled out now a little bit, but it's still quite challenging. And you need to be prepared for the things you can't prepare for.
Okay, so we talked about the negative. Well, let's talk about the positive. Let's turn this around because it is, you always have to look at both sides, and that's the thing. And as I said, we mentioned social media. People always are, as my mom would say, tooting their own horn. People always toot their own horn. And I think when you can brag. If you did something great, tell everyone, say I fucking did this, and everyone's gonna be, oh, that's awesome. But if you're just like saying, oh, I did, anything. So, Linda, we're gonna start with you. Give me a little bragging. You don't have to be braggadocio. You don't have to be all loud, but something you're in the last few years, accomplishment, personal and professional, that you're very proud of. Because when you are proud of something, you should share it. And this is the right place to share it because people know you guys and they like you guys.
Professionally, I look at the accounts that I've retained in that returning customer, and it's almost 100%, right? Like in the high 90s of my client retention rate. And so that is something I'm very proud of because it means I'm doing something right. But on a personal level, many people know that I lost my youngest sister to an overdose in 2017. And almost immediately, my other sisters and I formed Team Tony, and we walk in the recovery walk every year. And we've been advocates speaking out against substance abuse disorder and mostly the stigma that's associated with it because it does impact so many families, on an individual basis, whether you're the person struggling with addiction or if it's the family member watching a loved one suffer, right? It impacts us all. And, last year we participated in our 8th recovery walk, and we have finally raised over $50,000 for the Women's Recovery Community Center. And this year will be our 9th, and we continue to raise funds for that cause that is so needed. And it's, it helps me breathe and make sense out of something that will never make sense of losing my sister. But I feel like we've brought some good out of that horrible situation and continue to impact somebody. And if we can save one life, we've done our jobs. And, that's something that I'm proud of.
Okay, and it is something you're very proud of, and that's great. I know you work very hard on that. And Karen, okay, how about you? Something professional and personal that you're very proud of in the last year or two.
I was thinking about that too. After it was brought up, it's hard to follow Linda's because that was kind of amazing. I'm proud of being in business for 8 years. This is my 8th year. And I'm proud of the business that I built and the team that I built. I'm sure many of you can relate. I've made my mistakes in hiring and not hiring for the right thing or not hiring the person for the right role. So right now, we're a team of 5 women, and I'm really excited about where we are and where we're going and how streamlined things are. So I'm super proud of that. I'm proud of, the work that we deliver. And it's hard to think of separate personal from business because it's very much like this, which I'm sure my husband would rather it not be. But personally, I guess, just thinking about how far I've come, I started with literally hopes and dreams when I started this business 8 years ago. I didn't start with necessarily the base that some people have. I very much started from scratch. I did it out of what I felt was a need to do marketing a little bit differently. Especially with digital marketing, you tell people you're in digital marketing and they immediately go, oh, and I'm like, no, not like that. Like, we're different. We tell stories, like it's different. So, being able, looking back at that person and when I started and, the 14-hour days and all that good stuff. And to now, I'm really proud of that. Like, this is important to me and I'm really excited.
That's good, and see, that's the kind of stuff you get post on LinkedIn. People say, I'm really proud of this. Not like, hey, I just got my 18th certification. I don't even know what the hell it was for. I don't know. It's, people can always get these certificates all the time. I'm like, what are these certificates? Like, how can I get these certificates? I'm like, can I get a certificate? Joe, can I get a podcasting certificate?
Yeah, man.
All
of
right.
course, Coop.
Okay,
yeah.
you make me
right after the show.
Yeah, okay, you make me a sweet recording podcast certificate, and I'll put it in my office next to my Stockton State college degree.
Sounds good.
Barbara Anne, something you're proud of professionally and something you're proud of personal.
I'm laughing because that's not even all the initials that go behind my name. I only include those because they're very, very hyper relevant to the industry that I'm seeking to grow in. Professionally, I have 2. So Purposeful Solutions and Evolutions as an incorporated entity turned 4 in June. And so I'm excited about that. And one of the people that started with me is still with me. Also professionally I'm going to say it was October of last year, officially surpassed the 2,100 mark of the number of individual leaders and companies and businesses that I've assisted directly through my career. That doesn't even count like large training events I used to do with the SBA or anything like that. So I was really excited about that. And I sadly have a lot of individual collectibles from all of them. I'm like a little serial entrepreneur trainer. I have like little mugs and cups, including one of my current clients right now. Personally, I can actually, Linda, sadly, like so many people can relate to you, my youngest sister died of an overdose in 2018 after a 20-year battle with addiction and other traumas that she was still actively experiencing. And interestingly, one of the last things she got to tell me she was proud of is when I got my black belt. I train in a very traditional form of Okinawan karate, and would go on to get my 2nd degree black belt. And the last time we had our all black belts training weekend, the head of the system in the United States named me first student of the day of the first day, and then student of the entire training, or what we call a gashiku. And I was one of there's not a lot of women that do the kind of karate we do to begin with. And so to be named the student of the weekend was such an amazing and personally gratifying thing at my age with the challenges that I have to be called out on. So super excited. Still
That's
love
awesome.
that.
That's awesome. So you're parlaying into my next question, the next area I talk about. I did bring together an all-female panel, and I've done, my mom passed away on March 9th, and she was 94. And now my mom, that's why, and right after she passed away, I had like 4 weeks of all female panels, because my mom came from immigrant parents, and she grew up in Northeast Philly on the wrong side of the tracks. My dad was from the right side of the tracks. And she was born in 1930, and she graduated Temple University in 1952 with her degree in marketing. Now, she was the only woman in all her classes. How she got into marketing, I don't know. She actually had a job with Campbell's Soup before she graduated in market research. So I know the plight for a female business person, it has changed a lot, but in some ways it hasn't. There's still the bullshit man's club, and I have no problem saying that because I see it. Okay, and I've seen it all my life. But the one thing I really like is, and I've noticed, and especially after the pandemic, there's been so many female networking groups. May it be Melissa Beach, Joe Colantonio, Kelly Wernersbach does a lot of them. They're everywhere. Susie Protowski does one, and I think it's great because I think that it gives you guys a forum. But we'll start with you, Karen. Why do you think all of a sudden? Because it's after the pandemic. Like, I don't know. I mean, I used to run the Linda at networking events, chamber events when I first moved back from LA, and there wasn't any major female groups. It was back then. Then the pandemic happens. Why do you think there are so many female networking groups now, and why is it so important? We'll start with you, Karen.
So it's interesting you said that because I was in a few female networking groups before the pandemic as well. So I think maybe what has happened is the pandemic kind of forced us all to, if we wanted to interact with anybody, we had to get online. So there's a little bit more visibility, a little bit more opportunity to grow these groups because women understood that they were there, and there's an opportunity to work with other women and have these conversations and have somebody who relates to you and can maybe help you through questions and issues you might be having. The other part of that is I think people have finally started to recognize how important it is to have women in business. Statistically, we're still sort of falling behind, and especially minorities, we're falling behind. But I think as a whole, people have realized that having women run businesses, not just work in businesses, has become so important to the economy and to our communities and at large.
Okay. How about you, Barbara Anne? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I have to give a shout out to Joe Colantonio because she's actually my coach certification instructor, and I was her first professionally certified coach through the International Coaching Federation. So shout out to Joe, who just had her Women's Power Lunch recently. As the women's business ownership representative for the U.S. Small Business Administration in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, I got introduced to a massive world of women's networking groups. And really, everything that Karen said is absolutely true. There are certain things that women are most comfortable only really talking about with women. There's a very big difference between someone who's going through, prostate cancer, which is a horrible thing, and breast cancer, which is a horrible thing. And so I do think that there is a time and a place for people to be able to gather with other like individuals where they can talk through their unique experiences. Now, that said, I also think there's a place for including men in women's groups because some of my biggest sponsors were men. And the best way for them to learn is to also participate in some of the activities that some of these groups host and vice versa, because they learn how to be better allies and get a little bit better understanding of what some of the challenges are that women business owners and others face, whatever the group is that they are.
Okay. How about you, Linda?
I truly believe that we each come with our own gifts and talents, and we have something to offer. But women were never given the spotlight to share those gifts. We had to either undersell our abilities or to play in a role that people perceived us to be in order to be considered credible. And I think in the post-pandemic world, it was women who held it together, right? And that's not taking away from men and what they did during the pandemic too, but you had, for the first time, you had women trying to be a mom with also working a business or doing their roles and being pulled in so many different ways that it's like superhuman strength, right? We're not robots. We're not machines that have an endless supply of energy. And I think that's where the importance of mental health comes in and taking care of yourself. And from that place of vulnerability and being in a place of desperation and how do I go, you reach out to others that understand you. So you align with people that could understand the situation that you're going through. And you get the advice, you get the encouragement, you get hopefully solutions to help lift you up, because sometimes it could be a really dark thing that you're going through that, so, it's only through experience of someone else that you see the hope that you can move forward. And I think that that's the power of women groups, because we do understand things in a different way, and it's a safe place to truly be our authentic selves.
Okay. I agree with that. Something, and it's true. Like I see my wife and her friends and they talk, and then, you talk more like guys, if we get together and at my age now, we talk about like what blood pressure medicine we have. There's nothing like substance. Like women talk about real things. We're like, oh yeah, I'm on Cibrino. Oh, I'm on Cibrino. Oh, what statin you on? That's what we talk about. Like we talk about bullshit, but it's true. Even when you go networking, guys, it's just funny. So I've met all you through different avenues. And that's one thing when we notice when we go networking, we meet so many different people. As I said, Karen, I met you through John Cruz. And I met John through the pandemic when I had coffee with Cooper, which was I used to do a twice a week during the pandemic networking group Zoom, and I would get like 60 people, and I met so many people. And I've met a bunch of important people in the last, few years. So I want you to each give me an important person a very important person in your life in the last 4 or 5 years. It can't be a relative. We're not talking husband or wives. So just so you know, like you're not going to get in trouble if you don't say your husband. Like, oh, why did you say me? So it can't be any family. It can't be moms, dads, cousins, maybe like a fourth cousin. We could do a fourth cousin, but because they're not even really family. But Barbara, who's someone in the last few years that is very important to you in the business world and has made an impact on you?
I would have to say my team member, Sarai Romero. I actually met her while she was still in college, and she was participating in a program called Braven, which it was a fellowship. It's continued to grow, and it works with students in college who are looking to transition to the real world. And she's DACA. And that opened my eyes to things that I thought I knew that I really didn't even know. And she was struggling to get an internship. And I said, she was really fascinated by what I do. And I said, if you ever really seriously are looking for an internship, come see me. And so she did. And I gave her what would become our program that we call SEED, Disability, Inclusion, Equity, Diversity. We call it Going Seed Planting. It's our unique approach. And I gave her all my research from when I had done grad school. And I said, you come back to me and you tell me what we should start with in terms of helping people. And she came back to me and she said, this woman who was brought here at the age of 3 to save her life, handed off to strangers, you name it. She says to me, well, after looking at all the research, she said, you know what, when we're working with companies, she said, I think we should start with mental health. And I looked at her and I said, that's awesome. You want a job? So she built out the original program as part of her graduation project that would turn into a 20+ hour comprehensive program that helps companies even assess whether or not they're ready to address their culture issues and then how to do it. And she has been with me ever since. I promoted her. She's obviously no longer an intern. She's our lead training and development strategist in this particular area and does other projects. And she does all of our social media. And she lives in Wisconsin. I have not yet met her in person.
That's always good. That's me. I've just recently met some people that I had never met in person. I've known for 5 years through the internet. Linda, someone in the last few years, besides me, someone in the last few years who's been an important person in your life.
There have been so many people, and I actually just had this conversation with a lifelong friend where in the roles that we're playing in our needs and desires and everything, some of my best friends are networking partners. I will have to say that Jeff Harris is probably the person that pushed me to a new level of being a business owner, because during the pandemic, I joined a coaching community and he was one of the members. And again, playing small and not believing in myself, I did not do videos of public speaking. Here I am live on the Coop Tank. And it was Jeff who challenged me to do this 7-day video challenge. And that was a game changer. Every day I had to commit to answering a personal question, and some of them were really, really tough. And, in one video, I actually broke down in tears, but it showed me that people are listening, even if they aren't liking your video and stuff, that there is an audience out there. So always be showing the self that you want to represent, right? But he pushed me outside that comfort zone. And from that point, I never went back. You know, I have a message to share, and then someone is going to need that. And I never know who it's going to be. So I'm just talking, and Jeff is the one that pushed me out there.
Okay, that's good. Well, next question, Linda. Can you move up a little more into the mic? You're fading a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Karen, someone last few years, very important. Don't say John Cruise, because that's why you're on the show, John Cruise. No, someone who's.
I should say John. I mean, what's really cool with my trajectory for me is that I meet these people and they change the way I move. They change me in certain ways. John was one of those people. Stacy Linderman is one of those people. She's awesome. So I just meet people along the way and I say yes to things. And hey, do you want to come to such and such? Yes. Do you want to speak at such and such? Yes. And to Linda's point, I'm in marketing. So we are used to being back here, push people forward. We don't want to be on video. We don't want to be in the spotlight necessarily. But, I say yes to things and then I figure out later, I have my little panic and then I pull it together and I do the thing. But I would say it's so hard to pick one person, but I would say, even taking it all the way back to the beginning, I won a space at WeWork when I first started my business and it changed my life. It changed my life because I got connected with what we called ourselves the power table. And it's 4 people. We used to sit together. We'd go to WeWork at 9 a.m. We'd be there till 9 p.m. some days. And we would just hold each other accountable. And we were all building our businesses. We were in different stages of doing that. But I learned so much about being a business owner and an entrepreneur from them. So Nate, Maribel, and Greg, if you're watching, you better be watching at some point. Thank you so much. The Power Table.
All right. And I'll tell you, that's Stacy Lindeman. Lindeman watches the show. I wear the A6 FinBiz, but Lindeman knows she fell off my squad a while ago. Lindeman used to be the top of my squad. I threw Lindeman off my squad. I'm joking, Stacy. Now, since Karen mentioned you can come back on my squad, because she didn't come to a few of my events. So I gave her a hard time. And I said, I saw her at Linda's event and I said, I'm telling her, I said, Kim Levy took your place on my squad. And Kim, I said, Stacy, I said, Kim, you're an honorary Yenta. I said, Stacy, and I said, that was my squad, and so Stacy, you're back on the squad because Karen Seymour said so. But you better be there Wednesday because Joanne's going to be there Wednesday, Stacy. So, and I wear her A6 FinBiz shirt. Anyway, so let's talk about, you mentioned people that mean something to you. And, we all meet people. That's what we do. You network. That's how you meet people. And also when you meet people, when you are out meeting people, other people come up to you and ask you for referrals. People are going to ask you for referrals because it's because they want to know, they trust you. It's a matter of like, okay, but this person, I know them. I wouldn't. So now for me, I have a hard time giving referrals sometimes, just because you don't trust people. Like I can't on Facebook. When people send me a request to like a company, I can't like it if I don't know that company. Because bottom line is my name's kind of, and I don't deny it. I just put it in my box of things I don't respond to on Facebook because I don't want to do that. And that's, like if Linda said a company, I would say, hey, Linda, what do you really know about this company? But some people I think just do that because they feel it's the right thing to do, to sit there and say, oh yeah, it makes them feel important, but it's not to me. It's giving a true, like Linda knows, I refer Linda all the time. I tell the whole story about when I worked for Coit, how she gave us pizza cutters, and the plumbers that I used to deal with loved the pizza cutters. And we still have the original pizza cutter Linda gave me, the CFB pizza cutter and we still use it when we have pizza at home. But so that being said, Barbara Ann, someone comes up to you and they can ask you if they, a plumber or IT person or whoever, what characteristics and traits and work ethic does someone have to have for you to wholeheartedly refer them? Because I always say this on the show, if it blows up, that person doesn't hear it. You're the one getting the crap. Oh, well, Barbara Anne, that guy never called me back. So what do they need to have you refer them?
I'm really fortunate for what I do that I have such a great pool of companies that I have actually worked with. So if somebody comes to me and says, do you know any plumbers? There are plumbers that I've coached that I can actually say, yes, I've worked with them. I know them. I'm familiar with their work. I can refer you. One of the things I learned when I was at the SBA, we used to call it the rule of three. I don't usually, unless I only have one, I refer them to two or three. At a minimum, so that they can pick and choose for themselves, because what's a great plumber to me might not be a personality match for somebody else. And so I give them the options. And then I always say, please let me know if this referral did not work out the way that I've hoped by giving it to you, so that I know going forward whether or not that's somebody I want to refer.
Okay. How about you, Karen?
I think what Barbara Anne was saying is really important. You don't want to recommend somebody that you haven't worked with or you don't have some sort of professional relationship with. In my business, I also have like a network of people that I work with, bigger, smaller agencies, freelancers, etc. So people come to me and ask like for website builds or for photographers or videographers. I don't recommend anybody that I don't have evidence of their work ethic and that their product is good. It's really hard to build a reputation and really easy to lose it. And I have no intention of losing a reputation over somebody else's mistakes.
Okay.
The product and delivery is super important to me, so it should be important to whoever I refer.
Okay. How about you, Linda?
I think Karen and Barbara Ann summed it up beautifully in the sense that, my referral is also a reflection on me, right? So I want to make sure that whoever I'm referring is going to have that work ethic and that discipline to take care of whoever it is that I'm connecting them to. I do meet a lot of people in the 11 years that I've been doing this on my own. So I have met many different people in many different industries, and I'm a pretty good read on people as far as what their capabilities are and their personality types. And that's one of the things. If someone asks me for a referral, while I might know 6 or 7 graphic designers, not everyone is going to be a good fit for that person that is asking me for it. So whether it be for budget or the size of their company or even just personality types. So at times, if I have multiple people, I will say, hey, here's 2 or 3 people to reach out to. But generally, if someone's asking me for it, I just need to trust the person that I'm referring is going to take care of that person.
Okay. So referrals goes with networking. And right now, networking it's taking place pretty much for cold calling. People still cold call, but networking, that's the way to do it now. And we all have to get out there and network. And networking is very important. And people have all different ways of networking. And, there's some great networkers. There's some networkers that suck. But, those, they never come to Cocktails with Cooper. Now, I swear that's one thing. That's the one thing. No, I'll be honest, man. I've had like maybe 1 or 2 assholes. And I've been doing this for a year and a half. And, I sit there and I think they get the vibe that I don't like them because I'm very, I look at my group as my kids. And it's what I love about my group is that I do get so many new people. And I go, how'd you find out about it? And I think also my group is very diverse. I think I have a very diverse crowd, which is more than a lot of groups. And I'm like, and it's just chill. And that's important. And it's fun for me. And I really don't get to network much because I introduce myself to people come in because I all know, as Linda knows, I was like when the first person when I moved back from LA was one of the first people I networked, and we became networking buddies. And because I didn't know anybody, and I always know that feeling when you walk into a room and you don't know anyone, and there's a bunch of pricks and they don't want to talk to you. I never want anyone to have that feeling. So that being said, we're going to start with you, Linda. What do you like about networking? What is it that makes you what you really like? Because we all go back for it. It's like we're gluttons for punishment. But what do you like about networking?
Your groups are always top notch. I can vouch from like the day we won. You were my networking wingman, right? From the chambers to your personal groups. I have always felt very welcome and comforted, like being in those rooms. What I like about networking is meeting different people and hearing their journeys and the reason why they're doing what they're doing. Because At the end of the day, we're all trying to earn a paycheck, but money is usually so low on the totem pole for the importance of what we're doing. And if you're going to do something for 30, 40, 50 years, you better like what you're doing, right? And it generally shows through. So I love getting out and meeting people and hearing their stories, their whys, their hopes, their dreams.
Okay. How about you, Karen? You're out. You're more networking more now, right? You're out about more.
Yeah, so I have a slightly different answer than Linda in that for many years I hated networking and I didn't do it, which is why I often compare myself to a newbie on the scene, even though I've been in business for 8 years. Mainly because I was able to build my business on referrals and networking that I was doing online. So I would say maybe in the last 2 years I've been, hitting the pavement and like going out and meeting new people. And it's actually, I've turned that hate into a like, because I go to these things. They're not all the same. Coop was awesome. This was my first time going to Cocktails with Coop. And I'm inviting somebody next time around too. So, that was a really good experience. And I've had some really, really great experiences networking, meeting new people, making new friends, like people who are really like, I consider friends.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to talk shop a little bit, talk about what we're going through, talk about our experiences, of course, grow that referral traffic, but also like hang out and like just have fun and get to know one another and talk on a personal level. Behind every business is like a person, and some networking groups you go to and you're like, hi, my name is Baba. You do your elevator pitch, you give a card, and then you move on. Those aren't my favorite. I kind of like let's talk about things. Let me understand who you are as a person. What do you value? What do you do on the weekend? And then we can talk about business afterwards, but creating that kind of personal connection first.
All right. How about you, Barbara Anne?
I'm somewhere in the middle. So I'm an ambivert and but tending to more introverted. So it takes a lot of energy to be up in a crowd like that. It takes, and so when I go home, I just want to pass out from exhaustion. But what I've found is that because of that, I learned to use that to help identify the other people in the crowd who maybe are uncomfortable. And by doing that, I've met some really amazing people that I might not have met because they were uncomfortable themselves with just kind of sitting there. And some have even become business partners in different endeavors. And so I'd say that's probably what I like most about it. And of course, yes, your networking events are amazing. And I've met some really amazing people that aren't actually, that are very extroverted, that'll come up and say hi. But it's the quiet ones that might not otherwise speak up that have been the biggest surprise.
I always joke, I'm an introvert, and people don't believe that. I'm an introvert, and I always, hey, Kenny Aston. I went to high school and elementary. Ken, I think me and Ken went to the same elementary school. Kenny Aston's a great photographer down there in Annapolis. Glad you're watching, Kenny. One day, Kenny will make my event. Anyway, sorry, it popped up a message from Kenny. Kenny Aston, always dressed really nice. That Kenny Aston, and came to see me perform. God, like 12 years ago, I'm at Laurel. Anyway, but I'm an introvert. Oh, and I go to events. I'll be honest. I sit there. I'll go sit by myself, even at my event. Because I don't. If you talk to me, you talk to me. If you don't, I don't. Anyway, talking about talking, we got to wrap this up. And I always close the show with the same question. And now, someone comes up to you, and they can be at any point in their life. They can be getting out of high school. They can be getting out of college. They can be starting a new career change. Whatever. They're looking for someone to somewhat work in a mentor role, to give them advice. What, the guy said, the great late Warren Zevon would say, enjoy every sandwich. That was his advice. And he died, and he enjoyed every sandwich. If you don't know who Warren Zevon is, people look him up. Excitable Boy, one of the best albums around. Anyway, Karen, someone comes up to you. They want some advice. What do you give them? Advice about being in business or being in life. Someone comes to you as a mentor. What's the advice you give them?
This actually happens more often than I would think, because sometimes you're in there and you have a little imposter syndrome and somebody is like, wow, I can't believe you've been doing X, Y, Z. It depends on what they're asking about. Are they asking
About
about,
their profession? What does it take to make it in business?
I always tell people that it's the kind of therapy that you didn't want and you didn't ask for. You learn so much about yourself, so much about your strengths, so much about your weaknesses. Um, and deciding for yourself whether it's something that you want to address or that you want to lean into, or maybe you hire out for somebody else to do it. But there's so much that comes up when you're running your own business, so many emotions, so many trauma maybe that you didn't know you had, or how you step up to the plate, so many strengths. So yeah, I always kind of get them prepared for that part of things. Like, I think people don't really talk about the emotion behind business, and all the things that kind of come up with, like we're talking about disappointments and, these proud moments and these achievements. I think it's not talked about enough. So I really kind of lean into that.
Okay. How about you, Barbara? What's some advice you give?
So interesting, I do mentoring both for younger people as well as the Founder Institute and other businesses separate from my company. And there's three things. One is my own quote, which is, all transformational change starts the same. That's with a choice. Mm-hmm. The second thing, actually, we're going to go back to Joe Colantonio again. She coined this phrase, and I use it all the time. Always remember, what people say and do is about them, and what we hear and how we respond is actually about us. We're all looking at things through our own individual lenses, which helps with how we hear things. And then the third thing is actually Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was the president of India, and it hangs in our headquarters dojo. And I'm paraphrasing, but it basically is, there is no such thing as fail. Fail means first attempt in learning. And there is no end, because end means effort never dies. And there is no means next opportunity. And so when you look at whatever's going on through that frame of reference, it helps you turn every possible challenge that you confront into either a learning opportunity or success.
Okay. Now, how about you, Linda?
Being a business owner is not for the weak at heart, and it's not as glamorous as you think, with giving yourself the time off and lots of vacations. It's actually quite the opposite. And I always say, make sure you're mentally prepared, because at the end of the day, whether it's just you or if you have 25 employees or more, at the end of the day, it always comes back to you. So you need to be responsible and dedicated and really be accountable for what it is that you want to accomplish. And that's usually my advice.
All right. Well, this has been great. Karen, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, LinkedIn would be a wonderful place to find me. If you just type in Karen Seymour or Karen J. Seymour, I'll come right up, and I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. How
about you, Barbara Anne?
I'm on all social media. LinkedIn's probably the easiest. You're not going to find very many Barbara Anne Gardenhire-Millses out there.
You might find out Barbara Ann, Jacob Jingo, whatever. What is it? John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith. Linda.
I'm also LinkedIn, but I'm also on Facebook. So connect with me. It's Linda Milano on both Facebook and LinkedIn.
All right, people, you can email me at thecooptank@yahoo.com. Also, go look at YouTube. Go to past episodes of the Coop Tank. Watch them. There's some great insight. Also, when you're on YouTube, go to Coop's Comedy Corner. It's my podcast where I interview a lot of comedy writers who've won Emmys, stand-up comedians I'm friends with. And also, go to coopertalk.net. I've over 1,043 episodes. I've been over 70 members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Emmy winners, Oscar winners. I've had a bunch of great artists on that show. Also, don't forget, this Wednesday we have Cocktails with Cooper at Splits Bar and Grill with the one and only Joe Gangemi, and Contap is one of my sponsors. Contap, something you got to check out. Go to contap.com. This is on live right now, so if you're free tomorrow night, I'll be headlining Dave's Comedy Night at Pizzeria Uno in Newtown Square. I'll be doing a nice 45-minute set. And you can see me July 9th at Soundplex. I'll be hosting myself with Chris Scotia, who's an amazing act. So keep watching the show, keep listening. Make sure you hit up all these people to do business. Joe's busy right now, but look up Joe. Go to sweetrecording.com. If you need a studio built, hit up Joe. Go to contap.com. And I'm Steve Cooper. You all have a great weekend, and I won't see you next week. Have a great 4th of July. Bye-bye.